A bunch of exciting motorcycles made their way to our country over the past few years. Among them, a particular genre of motorcycles have created a lot of excitement among Indian bikers, and for a good reason. And those are the adventure tourer segment of motorcycles. They let you tour in comfort. They let you explore unexplored places, and given the conditions of our road, you don't have to venture out too much for off-road riding. In 2023, we saw two exciting bikes make their mark in the adventure tourer segment or in the off-road segment. First up is the Himalayan 450. This motorcycle created the segment with the Himalayan 411 in 2016, and this is its latest iteration. The second motorcycle is the outcome of the partnership between Bajaj and Triumph, the Triumph Scrambler 400X. Now you guys might wonder, what are we doing in this comparison? One is an adventure tourer, the other is a scrambler. I'll let Jehan explain that.
See, well, scramblers were the OG adventure motorcycles of their time, right? So basically, both of them have adventure in their DNA, even though the specs on paper might be very different, but they want to take you to the dirty business. They want to get down and mucky. So over here, what we are trying to establish is which is the better motorcycle of the two, and in order to do so, we'll be splitting this sort of comparison review in 5 various segments. So which is the better one in the city, which is better on the highway, which is better at off-roading, obviously.
And you're forgetting one thing, the fourth parameter would be fun, because these motorcycles are supposed to be fun, but with fun, we also want sensibility. So these are the 5 parameters for this comparison. I'm pretty sure this is gonna be very exciting and pretty close, right?
What a great way to start 2024.
Okay, Jayan, these motorcycles are supposed to do off-road and explore, but you and I know that most of the exploration will be in the urban jungle most of the time for these bikes. So what's your take about the city performance of the Scrambler?
So of the two motorcycles, the better one to live with is the Scrambler, and for 2 primary reasons. Firstly, because of how compact and lightly built and how light it is, right? The controls are near, you're in a much nicer, more confident, upright posture. So it makes city riding that much more effortless. Plus, the 19-inch front wheel is far better, easier to maneuver through traffic than a 21. So in that sense, the Himalayan is not as agile or fun.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, even though it has a 21, it doesn't feel like a 21, it feels like a 19. I thought with its long wheelbase.
Long wheelbase.
I feel like a limousine over there.
Yeah.
I thought it will be very lethargic and lazy, but that's not the case. It does its
Correct.
job well. It doesn't feel that heavy while filtering through traffic. Yes, the weight and the size is there, but it's not very prominent. But
Correct.
you were on the Scrambler, you were hustling through the traffic. I was trying to keep up. It did kind of, but yeah, in the city, I think.
Again, because of the larger fuel tank and the weight has gone up and it's raised, so it becomes far top heavy. So making tight U-turns becomes tedious. What's making it more tedious is that engine. This might be the Sherpa, but it doesn't have the chugging capabilities of this engine, so to say. So at lower revs, you're easily able to ride in the city on this bike, whereas this you have to consistently work the gearbox.
So if the Triumph, you can do the same speed at 3rd gear, you're doing that in 2nd gear.
Yeah.
And the clutch action also.
The gear shifts are inconsistent on
gear
both.
shifts are all over. Sometimes that works better, sometimes this works better. So we'll say it's neutral on that end. But while shifting gears, the clutch action, again, the Scrambler is lighter, even though you don't have to shift too many gears. But on the Himalayan, it's a bit more heavier. So in terms of the city riding overall.
So the Scrambler is definitely the better motorcycle to live with on a daily basis.
Okay, now let's hit the highway.
So this was definitely better to live with, but the tables turn when you take them both out onto the highway, right?
Yeah. I think there is no replacement for displacement.
Not only displacement, there are a few more factors where the Himalayan scores better.
I think, yeah. So I'll explain that. First thing is the cruising speed of the bike. You can do 110, 120 kph on the Himalayan. It feels much more composed at those speeds. The Scrambler, yes, you can do 110, 120 and even above, but the engine kind of feels a bit strained. The Himalayan, because of the larger displacement, the way it sits, it's better. The other thing is the acceleration of the motorcycle. Yes, 0 to 60, I think the Scrambler feels much more punchier off the line, but the Scrambler, when it comes the second stage of the revs after 4000 RPM, the Himalayan does 100 kph quicker than the Scrambler also. And I think the wheelbase also makes a difference because it feels much more composed doing that triple digit speed. So in terms of highway touring, I think the Himalayan has the edge.
So when you mentioned about cruising speeds and you said, okay, this is able to sit better at 110, 120, but vibrations are present on both motorcycles.
Yeah, that is
right
there.
And the harsher of the two vibrations are on the Himalayan. So ultimately it forces you to come back down to say 100, 110. You don't want to go faster. Whereas on this, staying at that speed is a bigger challenge for you, right?
You cut the momentum, it drops speed very quickly, which doesn't happen on the Himalayan.
So 100 kmph at both, it feels more or less same. But here, the way you're seated on this motorcycle, it's a far easier, more natural and better suited experience for the highway. So you're seated in a comfortable stance. You are not facing the wind as much because there is slightly better wind deflection there.
Yeah, there's nothing over there.
Just a little better. And overall, it puts you in that Zen mode, which the older Himalayan did at say 75, 80. This is now going to 100.
100. And the other thing is the riding posture. You're talking about the seat height.
Yeah, so like I said about why it should be at 845, or at least for riders who are medium or average size of India.
So I think 845 makes sense for 5'7" to 5'11", and below 5'7", I think 825 makes sense.
Correct. Because when you are, for riders like us who are slightly on the larger side, 825 feels like this in the bike posture, and it's not that nice.
Also
it puts
knees gets loaded up a bit,
and also very weird upper body posture. Whereas when you're sitting on the bike at 845, it's nicer. But for taller riders,
there's one more problem. I think above 6 feet, the Himalayans with the 845 seat height also feels a bit cramped, especially on the knee area.
And you can't grip the bike at that seat height for those riders. So technically the way to solve that is get the rally seat, which just raises the seat height further.
But then it becomes very focused as an off-road motorcycle. It loses out on the adventure tourer aspect of the bike, right?
Sure. But another thing that plays in the Himalayan's favor is the pillion comfort on offer, right? So because it's long, it helps. So you can have two-up riding.
More real estate over there.
Two-up riding with luggage, that too.
All the pannier mountings and everything is there on the bike. It makes touring much better. Two-up. The other thing is the rider and the pillion, they are not sitting very close to each other. They are in isolation, which is not the case on the Scrambler. You sit very close to the rider. I think in terms of touring, this feels better in that sense. And also while doing the touring speeds and the rough roads also, I think with the pillion, the suspension of the Himalayan feels a bit better in that sense.
The thing which you brought out, suspension. Both are very, very good suspension components, but that is just a little bit more sophisticated, a little better in flattening out anything that the roads or the highways throw at you. So,
okay, so we have established one thing. On the highway, the Himalayan is a clear winner. Just like the way it was in the city, the Scrambler was better. We also spoke about the suspension, that the Himalayan suspension feels better on the road, like in terms of the touring, the speed breakers and everything. But the suspension's main work is also off-roading. So let's get into the off-road bit.
1-1, where does the balance swing now?
So, Jan, highway, the Himalayan is the clear winner. It's time to get dirty in terms of off-road, which is the better bike.
Himalayan again, no doubt about it. Yeah, Scrambler, adventure tourer. So you get where the gist of the off-roading business is, because it has a lot more capabilities on offer. Firstly, due to the suspension, more travel and better sorted suspension. So when you're going out on the rough stuff, it stays flat, it stays composed, and it's not wavering in the path. Plus the 21-inch front wheel, it digs its way, it finds its groove, and you can predict your way in a much nicer manner. Unlike this 19 with a wider front wheel, which sort of darts or hops a little bit.
Yeah, it deflects a bit.
In that sense, you can't still get away from the fact that it's a long and heavy motorcycle, but the riding aspect of it out here, when it's tricky, this just feels a little bit more composed. Also, more importantly, 845mm, I said it, it allows you to hold the bike better. Stand-up posture is far better on the Himalayan. And that's
It's the way they have engineered the motorcycle.
Correct.
The way it narrows down in the spine where the rider will stand up. The frame just narrows down properly, so you can lock your legs very
You know
well.
why that, right? Because they are going to Dakar, so they need to do that.
But it's very clever engineering
Yeah.
by Royal Enfield on that end. The Scrambler, it's not that bad, but
Yeah.
it's not as good.
Correct.
The stand-up position.
I just wish one thing. You remember the old 411 had a narrow rear tire,
This one has the-
so that was a little easier. This is wider, so it's going in again in that GS zone where it feels a little heavier to steer a little bit.
It's
So-
a heavy motorcycle.
Yeah, so that heaviness is still apparent. I wish that heaviness went away from the Himalayan, right?
Yeah, that's there. The Scrambler, I will say ki it's lighter than the Himalayan. So
Correct.
yes, it is not as capable or as focused as the Himalayan.
Correct.
But whatever it does with a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It has that hooliganism in that, the lower seat height, because it is lighter, you can,
After all, it's a Scrambler. It has to be that.
exactly. So you can have more fun in that sense. It is much more focused
Yep.
and it is much more capable. But in terms of fun, if you are like a novice rider, I think you
Yeah.
will have a bit more fun over here.
Yeah.
But eventually that will be a better off-road motorcycle.
Yeah.
You will learn a lot of things on that. And
But let's get one thing very straight again over here, that neither of these are pakka adventure motorcycles or pakka off-roaders in that sense, right?
Yeah,
So you can't take them hardcore trail riding. You can't take them to tight technical sections. These are meant to be taking you to unknown territories in an easier manner, and this does that slightly better.
yeah, one more thing on the Himalayan that, yes, it does off-road better, but you miss that tractor-like
Yeah.
torque of the 411. If it had
Chuggability.
got that, so in terms of riding in the second gear, it would have felt much more easier. I'm not saying it's a bad motorcycle off-road, it's just that that low-end torque would have helped in the city as well as on the off-road trail.
And you have to slip the clutch a little bit to keep the revs going, and not everyone is quite proficient in that, because you will somehow, if you're going off-roading, you will end up falling.
Oh yeah.
And then long and heavy is not a good recipe for picking up, or at least if you don't have good muscles. Yeah, you would definitely require
Yeah,
that.
you'll get a good workout picking up the Himalayan.
In that sense, this is easier.
Yeah, even during the media ride, I saw a lot of media friends of our falling, and everybody was just waiting and looking, is help coming? Because picking up that motorcycle is heavy in this altitude. Imagine at that altitude with that cold. So that weight makes a difference. So if you want to go off-road riding, make sure you have a buddy with you on the Himalayan.
And,
with this, you can
somehow,
go
somehow I feel this will be a little bit heavier to pick up, or it will feel heavier to pick up than the 411 also, just because of the weight.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, the longer wheelbase.
The weight is spread across
Yeah.
it.
So even though this is 3 kg lighter on paper, but I
Yeah.
think in terms of the feel,
Yep.
it would be heavier.
Sure. So off-roading, definitely this is better, but you need to have a lot of this here to keep this right side up. And speaking of fun, since we already touched upon it, this is the more fun bike that
Clearly, on the twisties of Lavasa, I was having a ball of a time on this motorcycle. Again, that front end doesn't feel like a 19-inch, feels like a 17-inch. You can lean into corners much better, carry better cornering speed. Even in the city, it was fun. Even on the mountain twisties, it was fun. And also when you take it off-road, as we mentioned before, you can put your leg out, dangle it out, get the rear sliding. I think it has that whole fun nature. It's more of a hooligan in that sense, right?
Correct. So when you're pushing it to its limits, you get to actually know where the limits of the tires are, and you wish the tires were better. But one thing that is holding you back is those brakes, man. Why are they so bad?
Exactly, man. The brakes are a big letdown. Means on some of the corners, I could carry much more speed, but I had to back off because I knew the brakes were weak. I had to back off earlier. In fact, while riding in the city, I almost went into the rear end of a few rickshaws. Somehow managed myself. Even during the first ride, we gave feedback to Bajaj that the brakes are weak. And it feels that there are two clutches on this motorcycle because the brake lever, it just comes back so much, and the brakes are a big letdown given the performance.
So you didn't hear this from me, but there is one thing, that the calipers on this are the same as the new 390 Duke. So technically, if you bought this motorcycle, you can go to a KTM service center and ask them, can you please give me the new brake pads, the sintered brake pads for the 390 Duke. If they ask you for what, you tell them you've run out of yours fairly quickly and you're a hard rider. You pick them up, you put them on this, and you'll enjoy the good braking performance, at least better than what it is. But you didn't hear this from me.
Jugaad by Jihaz. Anyways, coming back to the Himalayan, again, the 21-inch doesn't feel that heavy or lethargic, even on the twists of Lavasa. In fact, we had a lot of fun on the Manali roads during the first ride.
Yeah.
Yes, it's a heavy motorcycle, but it doesn't feel that weight. You can have some fun on this bike. But the issue with that motorcycle are, again, tires. Both the motorcycles, the tires are an
The
issue.
Seats here are better than what the Seats were on the 411, but both of these motorcycles could do with better tires, but the brakes are fantastic on this, right?
With that weight and the way they kind of brake, the feel, the sharpness, the bite, everything is on point.
Who thought a Royal Enfield would be better in braking
Than the Triumph, right?
Yeah, and in that sense, yes, this is fun in its own right, but this you can see it just pulls away and pulls away.
Like a clear winner. It's like a proper hooligan, the Scrambler in that sense. So in terms of the fun quotient, the Scrambler takes it.
It's 2-2. Who would have thought it?
Things are getting interesting.
So to all, final decider, sensibility.
Yeah.
Okay, where do we start?
Sensibility is also very important because, okay, you need fun, you need engaging motorcycles, but in the end, they need to be sensible because they cost a lot of money also to buy.
Yes,
so let's start with money.
Price. Let's start with price.
Money. Okay.
So, when these two bikes were launched late last year, the difference between them, I think the base version of this was just 4,000 or 5,000 rupees.
Exactly.
But it's now 2024 and suddenly the price difference has shot up. Royal Enfield is charging how much more for the base color now?
16,000 more.
So they've become a little
greedy.
Okay.
I think it's not a great start for 2024 because, yes, Royal Enfield had mentioned that they will be increasing the prices of the bike post the introductory period comes to an end. I thought it would be a fair price, would be around 10,000. That's fine. But 16,000 is too much. Having said that, one good thing about the Himalayan 450 is that all the variants are the same. There are no changes in terms of the kit and features. It's just the color. But then again, 16,000 for just colors. Come on, Royal Enfield.
And when you factor in the Hanley Black, which is the priciest, that's almost like 30,000 rupees difference. Then
now the price gap has become too much. So
at least thankfully, this has more features per se on paper than this,
in
right?
terms of features, the Himalayan clearly is the more modern motorcycle.
Correct.
The Scrambler feels a
okay,
bit...
both of them have LEDs. Both of them have
indicators, tail lights,
electronic riding aids. But in that sense, the TFT looks spectacular, and this console just, I mean, like what? Why?
The tachometer looks like a fuel gauge for me. I always get confused thinking that that's the fuel gauge, that's the tachometer. And the fuel gauge is difficult to see when you're riding on the motorcycle. The Himalayan's TFT, beautiful. The way it's been designed, there's not too much clutter. You can go through the various information rather easily because there's a switch cube to toggle through the thing. Talking about that, the switch cube quality, I'm not too sure it's that great.
You said it feels a little flimsy. It does take a little bit of time to get used to, and even it's not as intuitive to start with, but then you figure it out. What I am more disappointed with is the navigation system on offer. Because you have to, let me say it, it's a fairly pointless thing because firstly you have to cast your screen over there. So that means you have to keep your phone unlocked. Plus, your battery will definitely drain. And what other thing that drained is within 15 minutes of riding it, sucked up like 2 GB of data. So I got a message like, your daily allowance is over. And I'm like, how?
I think that whole TFT, that navigation thing is a bit pointless because it's going to cast your screen and that's going to eat up your battery. I asked the same question to Royal Enfield guys and their reply was there's a USB charger next to the handlebar. So you keep your phone in your pocket and charge your phone on the move. But then I asked them, what will happen if I stand up? The cable is gonna snap.
More so, what happens if the phone falls?
Exactly. So in the end of the day, basically you're better off with a phone mount. And that thing is not that purposeful or useful in that case.
Okay.
Maybe in the future they could make it better because I think they are working on it.
Just get the Android Auto or the Apple CarPlay API. Just pay the companies because that integration is superb. Honda does it on the Africa Twin. I know that's the Africa Twin, but
Ather
still.
also does it.
Ather does it.
Yeah.
Exactly. So they have that ecosystem. Just use it.
And coming back to the electronics, the ride modes, this has traction control that is switchable.
This has off-road mode. Basically, traction control off, rear ABS off.
So this has like two modes called performance and eco, and there are two modes of ABS. In performance, you can keep the ABS on off, and in eco. And in terms of performance and eco, the eco mode, the performance is actually very slow.
Oh, okay.
And there is not much power there. Having said that, in the city, the eco mode makes a bit more sense because you can feel that low end is slightly better.
Like a 411 then?
No. 411 had that low end torque.
Yeah.
So this feels like a 411 without the torque, but slightly better than the performance, if you guys can understand that. So I don't know what is the fuel efficiency difference also.
Yeah, that's
we need to find that out, but I think it won't be too much.
But fuel efficiency. Now again, this might be sucking up a lot of data, but this is definitely a thirsty motorcycle.
It has a drinking problem.
Thirsty engine. Okay, so back in November or December when we were going down for IBW, we were doing some pretty serious speeds and keeping it at 110, 120 kmph. This gave us 22 kilometers to the liter.
So the thing is, Jan, I thought 22 kmpl is fine because of the kind of speeds we were doing.
Why?
The average speed. See, listen to me, 95 kmph we were doing the average speed. 22 kmpl I thought was fine, but...
No, why? Because we were riding with a KTM 390 Adventure along.
And that was more frugal.
KTM gave more fuel efficiency. 24, 25 almost.
Yeah.
If that says this, or at least is giving you 26, 27 kmpl.
Yeah.
So it's better. But then even today out on the shoot over here, this has given us just 23 and a half,
and
which
that
is not
too,
great.
I was riding back from Mumbai to Pune for this shoot, and the fuel gauge, that's one more area of concern. It was showing me that only 2 bars of fuel has been consumed, and today during the shoot we find out that it's on reserve. So the fuel gauge is not that trustworthy on that motorcycle. In terms of the overall fuel efficiency, the Himalayan is better, has a larger fuel tank. So again, for touring also, much better. So makes more sense.
But. Okay, it has a larger fuel tank, but you can't fill it up to the brim. Because, because if you do so, this bike has a very leaning problem.
Leaks too much.
And it spills a lot of fuel.
Yeah.
So you will just waste precious fuel, and in case if the engine is hot, you might end up spilling it on the engine.
Yeah.
That's a potential hazard.
Yeah, the side stand looks very well engineered. It's a cast, it looks very nice, but the problem is it tilts too much.
Correct.
I think Royal Enfield did that so that riders could get on the bike easily, shorter riders. But the problem is, when you are on the bike, you want to pick up the motorcycle. And now that happened with me in Manali because the surfaces were a bit different. On few inclined surfaces, I just parked the motorcycle. Then I realized I have to pick this bike up. And that was a big problem. That thing is so heavy, first and foremost.
I don't understand how they did so much great engineering and just reduced the weight by 3 kilos. Just 3 kilos.
Fuel tank is larger. So
2 liters, so that is around 2 kgs, let's say.
And the thing is, how much the USB for?
1 kilo extra. Okay.
1.5 kg will give
so
it.
So 3.5 kilos there.
But the thing is, RE engineers told me with the Sherpa 450 engine, they were able to drop 10 kgs.
So 10 kilos there, and you add 3 kilos here again. So then where is the extra 4 kilos being added?
I don't know. It's a big motorcycle in that terms, the wheelbase and everything. I think this should have been lighter.
Again, definitely, it should have been lighter.
Yeah, the weight is a big problem, not only while picking up from the stand. Even if you drop the motorcycle, also it's a big pain to pick it up. And
I think
and talking about dropping the motorcycle, I think the spare part cost, you think which one will be?
Oh, Royal Enfield has that thing better covered, right? Not only because spares will be far easily available, spares will be cheaper, but also the larger dealership network.
So whenever you're out touring and you have a mishap or some issues with the motorcycle.
Bajaj is growing this, but still...
Yeah, they're planning to do 100, but that's nothing in compared to
Royal Enfield. 1/3 of that almost, right?
Yeah, easily. Oh, that Royal Enfield dealership is like 700 plus, I think.
700?
Yeah, it would be much more. I'm pretty sure. So in terms of the dealership network, in terms of the ownership way, the service cost, the spare part cost, I think the Royal Enfield still holds the edge. The other thing is the accessories. Both the motorcycles have a bit of accessories. This has a lot of stuff.
This also has a fair few stuff. So luggage mounts are cheaper on this, whereas the luggage is cheaper on this. You get fancier mudguards and this thing over
The
there.
raised mudguard.
Yeah, which makes the aesthetics better here. There, I think you get a rally kit, but it's not exactly increasing its off-roading potential. It's just raising the seat height.
Seat height is there, and some
Risers.
other stuff. Risers is there. The luggage is different for the rally kit.
But
They
it's
also
not
have
like-
an exhaust muffler, which is designed by Arrow, but because of homologation, it's not coming to India.
But again, I don't see the point of it being called as a rally kit because you know the X-Pulse.
That's
the rally
proper.
kit on that, the suspension gets adjustability, the tires become knobbies,
Yeah.
and everything adds to that. Whereas this is still not a hardcore Himalayan.
But
So
still,
if-
the customer is getting an option. Like
Yeah.
Royal Enfield is giving them the option. You can go for an adventure tourer if you want something more off-road. There is that option of going for the rally option.
but if I want a hardcore Himalayan, I'll wait for the hardcore Himalayan, right?
So one thing that they still have missed is the tubeless rims.
Oh yeah, we forgot about that. We are running with a puncture on this thing. I'll show you the nail in a second. So we've done the entire shoot with a nail in the rear tire. Whereas if that happened here, we would be stuck.
And if you're especially here.
here.
Yeah,
How are
middle
you
of
going to push
nowhere.
this?
Yeah, I think they said it will be coming soon. There is no definite timeline when the spoke wheel, the
And
tubeless
then the
spoke
prices
wheels
will
come.
again go up.
Yeah, as it is gone expensive. That thing will add another 30K. I think so, 30K. I don't know what will be the price, but that will be expensive. I think this is where, yes, for off-roading, the spoke wheels make sense. I think they should have a tourer variant with some alloy wheels.
So that will be the Scram, no? 19.
Oh yeah, sorry, I forgot that.
Yeah,
We need that.
Royal Enfield has a whole host of... But okay, coming back.
Yeah.
Sensibilities.
I think both have their pros and cons, but overall,
Neither is coming off to be a clear...
very sensible
Yeah.
motorcycle. But I think the Himalayan slightly has that edge when you think of fuel efficiency, when you think of the spare part cost, when you think of the dealership network. I think when you think of the comfort bit on the highway slightly, I think.
Okay.
And also the console and the features that they offer.
Okay,
because
let's
this is a
just
bit
sum
more
up the video right here then itself. If you had 3 lakh rupees or 3.5 lakh rupees and you wanted to put down, and I know you want to buy an adventure bike, right?
Yeah.
Which one of these are you picking up?
So my criteria of a adventure motorcycle is it has to do it all.
Yeah.
It can't be like, okay, I'll keep one adventure bike, one street bike. I don't believe in that aspect. I want one motorcycle that does it all.
Yeah.
And I had my hopes on the Himalayan that this is finally that all-round ADV motorcycle that we've been waiting for. It is a great tourer, this motorcycle. It does highway bits very nice. It's very comfortable. The suspension is nice. Off-road bit also is not that bad. But the biggest problem with this motorcycle is that engine. That Sherpa 450 engine for me, I thought the problem is it doesn't have the low-end torque that you associate normal Royal Enfields, especially the older Himalayan. It's not very peaky like the KTM 390 Adventure. So I'm not getting the punch higher up the revs. I'm not getting that wave of torque lower end. So that whole engine's direction is a bit confusing to me, and that kind of pulls it down, because if it had got the low-end torque at least, great in the city, great off-road, and still good on the highway. I think that engine has put it down. Having said that, it has a lot of things going for it. As an adventure tourer motorcycle, if you want touring, this is the bike. Like, this is the most comfortable tourer for that price. But if you want to do city riding, city commuting, it will be a compromise. It won't be very easy. It is something that you will have to learn and live
बताओ ना
through.
तुम लोगे ये?
I'm still not sure whether I'm going to put my money on the Himalayan. For me, as I see, either I wait for the KTM 390 Adventure, which is going to come out. New one. Or there are two very different aspects. The other one is the V-Strom 250. Now, you guys might think the V-Strom is just 2,20,000. It's not an adventure bike. It's a tourer. And in terms of touring, that long travel suspension, yes, it's not as good as this. But it's like doing 80% of what it does and giving better fuel efficiency, cheaper asking price, and reliable. It's a Suzuki.
Correct.
So I'm a bit confused between the V-Strom 250 and the 390.
Between these two, I personally recommended this to my brother, and he's gone out and bought this bike, and he's happy because, again, like he mentioned, we don't have this mentality here in India where one bike is meant for one purpose and everything. Even though I like to do it, I have specific bikes for
He's a hoarder.
I have specific bikes for specific reasons, but he wanted one bike that could do it all, and in that sense, the Triumph is just that little bit better. Yes, he does a lot of city riding. Yes, he also comes out here at Lavasa quite a bit, and he is going to do a fair bit of touring. In that sense, the Scrambler made most sense. So out of the two, if you want a do-it-all motorcycle, which does everything best, right? The Scrambler has the edge.
Still slight edge, and also the point of the pricing.
Correct.
Is coming at a much affordable price point
Yes.
also. So it's cheaper, it's doing everything. Yes, it doesn't do everything great, but it's doing that. The Himalayan, if you are a focused tourer, makes pure sense. But
if I had to go only for a touring perspective, because that is the only bike which is missing in my garage right now, then I would think about this, but I would still not get it because Arun said the next 390 adventure is on its way.
Yeah, I think that will be a great motorcycle because as we have seen on the 390 Duke platform, the engine, the chassis, the way it has been all designed, it just looks proper, and we have spotted the motorcycle also. So I think among these two, this makes most sense as an all-rounder. This is more focused as a tourer. Both bikes really have their pros and cons, but I think the Scrambler takes it because of the pricing and the fact that you can do it all, while this is a bit more focused on the highway. Don't you think?
So that's a good place to end this video. What do you think about these two motorcycles? Do let us know in the comments below. Are you team Himalayan or are you team Triumph Scrambler? Do let us know that. Also, don't forget to like and share this video. What else do they need to do?
Always wear your helmet and a proper riding gear when you're out riding because safety is paramount.
Thank you so much for watching.